Hey Oasis, Pastor Caleb here again. Based on the title of this video, you might be really interested in what I have to say. And so I encourage you to listen to all of what I'm about to say. Watch the whole video. It may be a little longer than I like, but I've got quite a few things that I want to discuss. So I want to begin with a passage of scripture that has been meaningful to me over the last month as I've been praying for and thinking through how to lead our church well and what the next season looks like and what to watch out for. What are the potential pitfalls before us, or the stumbling blocks before us as a congregation and as a church. And so this is from Proverbs chapter 27, beginning verse 23. Here's what it says. Know well the condition of your flocks and give attention to your herds. For riches do not last forever, and does a crown endure to all generations? When the grass is gone and the new growth appears and the vegetation of the mountains is gathered, the lambs will provide your clothing and the goats the price of a field. There will be enough goat's milk for your food, for the food of your household, and the maintenance or the care of your ladies, your girls. Now, the passage is obviously speaking about shepherds in the literal sense, right? And really this is true of any entrepreneurial task or any job or vocation that you do. If you don't know the condition of your business, the condition of your product, if you don't care for your clients, right? If you're not concerned about their needs, and if you're not meeting their needs and aware of those things in any vocational endeavor, well then your vocation isn't going to care for you, right? Your business isn't going to last. Someone else is going to care for your clients. And that's true for shepherds and their sheep and their goats. They won't grow healthy and strong. They won't care for the needs of the shepherd and your mission. Ultimately, you'll fail in your mission as a shepherd or as an entrepreneur or whatever that is if you don't care for the condition of your task, right? Well, what's the task? What's my task as a shepherd of this church? What's Pastor Bob and Pastor Sam's task and our elders' task, the leadership team's task in our congregation and with our church? Well, it's this. It's to know the condition of the flock, and all of you are our flock, and our flock has been growing tremendously in the last year or so, 18 months. For a number of different reasons. We've baptized more than 52 people last year, and we've had salvations, and some of you who've been out of church for decades have finally found a home again within a fellowship in our congregation. And then it's just remarkable to see happen. And so we find ourselves in a position where we're an average of attendance of about 430 on a Sunday morning. And really that only represents a portion of the people that we actually care for as a church, right? Because not everyone's here every week, and that's kind of a good thing, because if you all were here every week, we wouldn't have enough space for you in two services. We'd have to do at least a third, because realistically, and this is a conservative estimate, there's probably 650 to 700 people in Fallon and Churchill County who would call Oasis Community Church their home. Now, that brings up a question to me, and that is, do we have enough shepherds to care for that many people, to care for a flock of that size? And if you ask church leadership, statisticians, or consultants, or whatever that is, those kinds of people, they will tell you that on average you need one pastor for every 80 to 100 people in your congregation to actually care for them well. That's about all that a pastor can handle. Well, we've always historically run very efficiently. And so we have three pastors, a youth pastor, Pastor Bob, and myself, and then a retired or emeritus pastor in Pastor Bill, who still cares for people within our congregation as well. But that, if you take the three full-time vocational pastors, that's running close to about 150 people, just in the people who attend church on a Sunday per pastor. In the broader scope, that's more like 235 people, perhaps, per pastor. And that's becoming unmanageable. And what that means is we are not necessarily doing as well as we could in knowing the condition of the flock. And so all of that is to say that it's become a conviction of mine that we need to bring on more staff members. We need to bring on another staff member at least to help ensure that as we continue reaching the lost and growing as a congregation, that we're not forgetting the care of the people that are under our charge. We're not forgetting to care for all of you and losing track of your needs. And so an immediate question some of you have who are more business-minded is, can we afford it? Can we afford another staff member? Well, the answer is twofold to that. First, yes, we can. And second, thank you, right? Because it's all of you who are providing those resources so that we can pursue our mission. And part of our mission is caring for the flock that is in our charge. We're in a remarkably wonderful financial position because of your generosity and your worship to the Lord, because your giving is worship unto God. You recognize that He's given to you in abundance, and you return to the Lord and say, this is for your purposes and for your task to reach the lost, to lead found families to find and follow Jesus, while we mobilize resources to evangelize the world. So yes, we have the resources. We've had the resources to significantly increase our giving to missions. Our target now this year is $65,000, and I think we're going to meet, perhaps exceed that target of giving to missions. We have had the resources to do all the work that we've done over here in our kids ministry and the renovation projects. And frankly, by the end of the year, we might pay for all of that this year, not just with the additional resources that we had at the end of last year. And so every month we see that not only are we bringing in the resources necessary to meet our budget, but we're doing so and then some. And so yes, we have the resources, and that's all thanks to you. So then the last question you may have is who? Who do we hire? What are we tasking them to do? Well, I want to hire someone to intentionally care for the congregation so that their primary task is care and counseling. There were moments last year when I had as many as 8 marriage counseling clients at a single time, and given the needs of the congregation and where I have to have my intention in so many different areas with the elders and helping our staff succeed and with the leadership board as a whole, in addition to my teaching responsibilities, it became quickly unmanageable, right? And what the last thing that I want is for you, if you have a need for counseling or care, to feel guilty. And I've had people say that to me. Well, Pastor, I didn't call you because I know you're so busy. That's the last thing that I want. It's the last thing that we need as a church. I don't want you to think that your pastors don't have time for you. And so if that's happening, then we've got to fix that. And so I want to hire someone to intentionally focus on care, pastoral care, and counseling, to help support the care ministries that we have in the church, to focus intently on hospital visitations and our prayer chain and things like comfort in affliction, this new care ministry we've launched for those who are suffering from chronic illnesses and cancer, to ensure that we have enough time as a pastoral staff to meet all the counseling requests and needs that people have, whether marital counseling, premarital counseling, or discipleship counseling. I never want you, if you have a loved one passed away, to feel guilty that you're taking time away from us to run to help officiate a funeral service for them. Like, we can't allow ourselves to make that happen. And so especially as we grow as a church, we need to focus on that. And that's what I think we need in a shepherd next. And so the question is, who do we hire? Well, many of you know it's hard to hire people from outside of Fallon to come work in Fallon. That's difficult. We've, in the past, before I came, the church tried to hire a number of people who came to visit and liked the church but hated the town and hated the area, and they didn't like the high desert, and they wanted trees, and they wanted Costco to be closer than an hour away. And so we have called people to the church, and they've refused or said no for any number of those reasons. And so it would be a huge blessing to us if we had a shepherd here in town that we could bring into the fold to help us care for our flock. And as I've been praying about this, and the elders and I have been working through this, the truth is we think we do. We think we do have a shepherd among us that we can bring into the fold for the purpose of focusing on pastoral care and counseling in our congregation. And many of you might know who I'm referring to before I even say his name, but I'm talking about Woody Swenson. And so I am proposing to the church right now, and I've already proposed this to our leadership team and our boards. We've been praying about it. We've spoken to Woody about this. He feels like the Lord may be calling all of us to move in this direction. The leadership team has met with Woody and interviewed him about this potential role, and they all feel that the Lord is potentially calling us to move in this direction. And so many of you know that Woody was a pastor over at Parkside Bible Fellowship until about a year ago, and he was a minister there for a long time, about 30 years or more, if I'm correct in that. And so many of you who in the last year or so have migrated over to our congregation already know Woody as your pastor and a shepherd in your life. And over the last year, Woody hasn't stopped being a shepherd to you. I see him before and after every service trying to do his best to care for the people who have always been his flock and under his charge, and to meet some of the people who weren't, right? People from our congregation. And Woody and Noreen have been members now of our church for a while, for several months. And I've just been blessed to see just their heart and their tenderness of heart towards people. And I know Woody's continued to do premarital counseling, and he's officiated funeral services for some of you who've lost loved ones. And so he's already being a shepherd to you. And that creates an interesting conviction to me, for me, because there's a principle in the scriptures, and I'm always concerned, right? Always concerned with our obedience to the Lord. And the scriptures are the ones who are the place where we find where we're supposed to be obedient. And so there's a principle first found in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 25, where Moses is telling the people not to muzzle their oxen while they tread out the grain. And there's a principle in that. Your animals should be fed by the work that they do. Your animals should be fed by the work that they do. And so if the oxen is treading out the grain, well, let him eat from the field while he's doing so. And to do otherwise, in essence, would be slavery, right? You're forcing someone to do work, but not allowing them to feed themselves and their families from the work that they're doing. You're not meeting their needs from the work that they're doing. And that's deep in the heart of God, right? Because God freed the Israelites from slavery in Egypt, where they were being forced to work, but not benefiting personally in the feeding of their family or the well-being of their family and the care of their family by their labors. And God freed them out of that. And so he applies then that principle to their oxen, but the Apostle Paul applies the same principle to pastors and to ministers, to shepherds of the church. He does so in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 9. He does so in 1 Timothy chapter 5. I believe that's verse 18, where he's defending himself and his right or need to be cared for by the church financially and to care for his own needs. So if we have someone who's being a shepherd among us, who's qualified as a biblical elder, who has the educational training to be a vocational minister and care for the needs of the people theologically and otherwise, who is already a member of our church and has affirmed our statement of faith and has sat under the teaching of our fellowship already. When I look at this, for me, there's a conviction that we need to be caring for that vocational shepherd in their financial needs. And many of you who came over from Parkside in the last year have been so generous, and a lot of our financial position here as a church and the things we've been able to do are because of your generosity and your worship to God and your giving. And so how can I not care for financially one of your shepherds who has not stopped being your shepherd over the last year? It's a personal conviction that the Lord has laid on my heart when I process all of this. And so I want to say thank you to Woody, in the very least, for the way that he's continued to care for all of you in that. And so where do we go from here? Well, there's, like I said, we've gone through the process with the board, and the board feels like this is a wise decision for us. But I want to give an opportunity for all of you in the congregation to speak into it as well, to pray about it. So please take a couple of weeks to pray through this possibility of bringing Woody Swenson on to help care for the needs of care and counseling in our congregation. I want you to speak to me, speak to our elders, talk to us about your feelings about that, good, bad, or indifferent. Let us know how you think the Lord is guiding your thoughts and prayers on this matter. And then we want to have an opportunity for those of you who do not know Woody and Noreen well to get to know them better. So on July 13th, that's a Sunday, after the second service, 1 p.m., we'll give a little bit of space so we can be prepared. We want to have a meet and greet luncheon for those who do not know Woody and Noreen well. If you know them well, save the seat in our fellowship hall for someone who doesn't. Give someone else an opportunity to ask questions and get to know them and hear their story and hear their heart and their passion for ministry. So July 13th, put it on your calendars, 1 p.m. if you'd like to be a part of that meet and greet interview sort of time for the congregation as a whole. Be praying about this and bring your thoughts and intentions to me so that I can help walk you through that and just know how the Lord is leading you in this. The last thing that I need to say about that is there's an odd denominational reality I have to work with here, because Woody hasn't been through the licensing procedures with our denomination yet. And really that's just an interview with our licensing, ordination, and consecration council. So until he does that, technically speaking, I'm not allowed to title him as a pastor. And so what we're looking to hire him as in the meantime, until he goes through that licensing procedure, is a director of pastoral care and counseling, simply so that we're being obedient to our denominational requirements and bylaws in that regard. And then it's up to Woody ultimately if we end up hiring him as a church at the church, whether or not he wants to go through that licensing interview so that we can technically call him pastor. I know many of you are never going to stop calling him Pastor Woody. I don't have a problem with that. I just have to be obedient to our denominational bylaws in that regard. So I know it's a long video. I'm sorry if it was hard to get through, but I need to be able to share with you my heart and my thought process and where I think God is leading us in that regard. So speak into it. I love you all. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you later.